Hey, got something really cool I wanted to run by and let you know what's going on. So I'm starting a group that will start taking a deep dive into each one of these episodes. So we'll collectively come together and talk about the shows, talk about the guests. I'll be bringing back some of the guests to do some Q&A sessions and really take a further dive into their story, their journey, the episode, talk about, maybe some of the things you wish I would have asked on the episodes, do some Q&A sessions and the like. As a friend put it to me, it's really like a book club, but for the podcast. So a couple times a week, we'll go in, we'll break down the favorite shows of the week, and have cool discussions around everything that we've heard, we've learned, and want to know about their journey. Some of these guests will come in and they'll teach part of, what makes them awesome at what they do. And then, as always, I'll be providing regular value and content in this group. It's really cool because this only is going to cost $5 a month to join this group. And you'll be able to come in, interact with everybody else in there. So I'll put a link right in the show notes for this that you can jump in, come have a conversation with us, and we will really deep dive into each one of these episodes and help us all rise up together. Thanks for tuning in, guys. It's going to be a great show today. Having the show wasn't something I started out to do. But the day I found out somebody wanted to really sponsor the show was a really, really cool experience. So, guys, I want you to take some time to go check out Point Blank Safety Services and their new nonprofit, Blue Family Fund. These guys are doing some really, really cool things. And Stacy McGovern, who's the CEO over there, has been a dear friend, and she was a guest on the show. But these guys are literally taking, the off-duty officers and putting them out in security guard role. And here's what's cool about it is, as they're protecting our lives, they don't make a whole lot of money in that regard. No first responders are paid for the value they provide for our safety and our health and taking care of us. So these guys, Stacy and her team over at Point Blank Safety Services have really found a cool way to give back to these officers by helping them provide an additional income so they can continue to support and protect us. So do me a favor, guys. Seriously, go check out pointblanksafety.com and then go look at their nonprofit, which is Blue Family Fund. Now, this nonprofit was created because of the success of Point Blank Safety Services. They wanted to give back to the families of fallen officers and be able to give scholarships away to the families of current, police officers. So do me a favor. It would mean the world to me if you would go out and help support this show by supporting Point Blank Safety Services and their nonprofit Blue Family Fund. Just tell them Donnie has sent you. You heard it on Donnie's Success Champions, and Stacy will take a tremendous and amazing care of you. Thanks, guys.
Hey guys, Donnie Boivin, and it's Fridays with Donnie. You know what, I think today I'm going to call it Fired Up Friday, because I'm pretty damn motivated with a lot of things that are happening and moving in my life. You're going to have to forgive me a little bit on this one, guys. I'm driving to a client and recording this episode as I go down the road, so you're going to hear, a little bit of the traffic, you're going to hear a little bit of the road surface. So bear with me, guys. It's going to be a lot of fun, but we're going to talk about how to stay fired up Friday, and how to go big and loud. So this has been a really interesting week for me. I've got to say, it's actually been one of the funner weeks of this year. And here's why. On Monday, I had a full day of client meetings and conversations. And then Monday night, I had a speaking engagement where I got to work and talk with a bunch of veteran entrepreneurs. And we got to talking about social selling and sales. And we just talked a lot about how they should be running their business. And the really cool thing about that Monday night conversation was the overall theme of it really was, you got to go do to get. I mean, it was really, really cool talking to these guys that some had their own businesses, some were thinking about starting a business, but it was fun walking through, how do they get out of their own way so they can grow and build a bigger business. And I'll have some videos coming out of this speech not too long from now, but the interesting thing is how eager they were to learn. So here's a couple of takeaways from that speech. One, you got to go big and loud. You guys have heard me say that before. But what I told them was, you got to be in the social game, and you yourself have to become a brand, because your brand is your company. Now, I'm not telling you to build a personal brand jumping on that bandwagon. What I'm telling you is, people buy from people. They don't buy from companies. The exception to that rule is retail. Because odds are you're not going to talk to a person until you check out, and even that's going away. But most other things, you still go through a person to make a purchase. Your brand is what they're buying. Your product or service is what they're getting. If nobody knows who you are, then you're going to get exactly what you're putting out there. Oftentimes, no different when I gave this speech, is I will get somebody to come up and say things like, I don't want to be on camera. I don't want to put the information out there. I don't want to be on social media. I don't want to. And my response is, go get a job and work for somebody else. And here's why. If you won't put yourself out there, you're not going to sell. And you're not going to grow. Because nobody's going to know anything about you. Nobody's going to know, that you exist. And if you don't exist, how the hell can somebody buy from you? And it's interesting to watch people wrap their minds around this. And it happens to me quite often, is I'll get the head bobs. And people are like, yes, I get that. That makes sense. And then they go right back to continuing to do what they've been doing, which is usually nothing. See, you do and you get. You don't do, you don't get. And what I mean is, you can't leave something you learned and not go do the things you learned. I mean, you can't embrace a concept and doing nothing about it and expect to get the results from it. And I truly believe that you never really fully learn something until you do it anyways. It's the trouble with schools, is they tell you what to do, but if they don't give you a chance to employ it and do it, you never wrap your head around it. I know a lot of you listen to podcasts, you read books, listen to books, and I know me, I used to consume a ton of books on a regular basis. Now I listen to more podcasts and inspirational videos. But the trick is you can consume all you want. But if you do nothing about the consumption, you don't take action on those things you're learning, then you'll get nowhere. Well, you'll get somewhere. you'll get frustrated because you're not accomplishing what you wanted to accomplish, because you're not doing what you wanted to do. That's somewhere. And interestingly enough, in this day and age, same thing as I told the group Monday night, is I don't care what your thoughts are about social media. I don't care what your opinions are about social media. Is if you're not social selling, you're leaving a ton of money on the table and a ton of opportunities. And I'm going to bounce all over for what things that happened this week. But at the same token, interestingly enough, I had a conversation last night, and the conversation was completely wrapped around that you can't just do social selling. You can't just spend time on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and Facebook and expect to grow your business. Now, people do, but it's still not the complete norm. So you need balance. And just like you probably hear people talking about multiple revenue streams, when your business, you need the same thing. You need revenue coming from social, revenue coming from networking, the revenue coming from, face-to-face selling. You need multiple revenue streams coming from multiple people. And it all comes back to is if you don't do anything, that's exactly what you're going to get, is nothing. Don't do anything, don't get anything. So Monday night was a lot of fun. I got to, really spend some good quality time with some folks that are really trying to do something with their lives and their business. And then Tuesday. Now Tuesday, I spent all day at a conference. I was basically the final keynote speaker. And this, too, was also about veterans. But I got to hear some really great speakers talk about their journey and the things they do. We got to hear from some of the Dallas Mavericks personnel. Got to talk to, the CEO of U.S. Concrete. And, it was a fun and great time to listen. But the disappointing thing about the event that I'm grateful for was when they asked me to come speak a year ago, it was supposed to be for 350 plus people. And I was prepared to stand in front of a very large crowd. Now, I will tell you, my favorite thing to do is talk in front of very small, intimate crowds. I want to get in there and mix and mingle, rub elbows, and individually really help people with whatever their problems and questions are. So you give me an opportunity and I'm going to talk with each person in the room. So I was prepared to do an hour-long speech in front of a great-sized audience, and I did everything I needed to do. I brought a camera crew to film, to grab some content for social, for you guys, and take pictures of interactions. Well, the event itself, like I said, had maybe 100 people there. So I got a chance to shake or talk to almost everybody's hands, I think. I met quite a few people at the event. And when it came time for my speech, I had a very, very tiny audience. And what I loved about that was I got to get in there and talk about the things that they were working on. And it was a lot of damn fun. So I'm really grateful that the whole day didn't necessarily plan out like I wanted to or was supposed to, because it really gave me an opportunity to provide some amazing value for some awesome folks. And a couple of the conversations that I got into with people in front of the room, still the same thing, but was, the one gentleman, and you guys have heard me, I'm telling everybody to start a podcast. You should absolutely start a podcast for your business, for whatever you're doing, to grow your business. Well, I was doing this more Q&A style speech, and I had just got done telling the room that they needed to start a podcast. And a gentleman walked up to me and he said, Donnie, I get it. I should start a podcast. But I'm an HR consultant. Nobody wants to hear about HR principles on a podcast. Nobody's going to listen to it. Nobody's going to listen to you need to put your OSHA sign up. Right? Nobody's going to listen to you need to put your employment signs up. Nobody cares. I said, okay. I said, what are you into? And he goes, what do you mean? I said, what do you really geek out on? What are you just so into you could talk about for hours? And he said, oh man, it's motorcycles. I said, tell me more. And he went on about how he used to ride and the parts and the brand names, and he had to sell his bike to start this company, and on and on and on. And I said, why don't you start a podcast about motorcycles? And he said, tell me more. I said, imagine if you had a show where you could talk about motorcycles and parts, road trips, bring in the manufacturers of these parts, the racetracks, and you literally had a show where you could just geek out and talk with other people who are into motorcycles. He goes, man, that would be cool. But how would that grow my business? And I simply walked him through the process of getting around your people. And when I mean your people, I'm talking about the people that geek out about the same thing you geek out about, and getting them to become friends with you. Because, at the end of the day, people want to do business with people they trust. And one of the easiest ways to get trust is to deal with people who are just like you. And let me clarify, I'm not talking about race or anything like that. I'm talking about what is it you geek out on? What is it you're into? So as I'm talking to this guy and he gets it, he's like, motorcycles, I could totally do this. He goes, all right, so I do a show, I meet these people that I get around, and, we build a bond, we build a friendship. How does that grow my business? I said, great question. I said, how many friends do you have? He goes, I have 5 or 6 really, really close friends. I'm like, awesome. What do they do for a living? And he rattled them off really, really quickly. I said, perfect. How'd you learn what they did? And he paused and he had to think for a second, and he's like, well, because it's always come up in conversation. I said, and if you had a need for whatever their service or company was, wouldn't they get the call? He's like, well, absolutely. I said, it's the same thing here. It's going to come up, because eventually the number one question asked in most conversations is, what do you do for a living? And when people start learning what you do, they've already got a bond with you over what you've been bonding over. That's why I love hanging out in groups full of veterans. With veterans, I can walk in the room and there's an instant rapport because we know what to small talk about. We know what to geek out about. Now, that veteran may be into a whole bunch of different things that I'm not into, but we have the commonality of talking about our experiences in the military. And that makes life better. So when you can start a podcast about whatever you geek out about, you can literally create your own tribe of geeks on your thing. And here's the trick with social selling. Social selling is about massive volume. And what I mean is you really want to explode a business, then have a massive tribe that allows you to win more easily. Put it this way. If you have 5 friends and that's all you have, then that's all your choices are when it comes to doing certain things. But if you have 5,000 friends, now you 10x whatever it is you're hoping to do. So think about it this way. If you had your opportunity to talk with 5 people who you might know, or 10,000 people who geek out on the same thing you geek out on, where would you want to be? And if you're growing a business, it better be with the 10,000. And what I walked through with this guy was, it's not about going into social and selling. It's about going in and delivering real value so that people will come back to you. And he asked me to explain it further, and here's what I told him. I said, what you're doing is you're going to find a group of people who geek out on the same thing you geek out on. It's really that simple. And from there, you go start having conversations. And inevitably, in every group, at some point, somebody's going to pop up and say, anybody know somebody who does X? Which is liable to be your product or service. Or they're going to say, anybody ever dealt with this before? And it's probably your product or service. Now, if somebody says, does anybody know anybody who does X? Throw your hat in the ring. Say, absolutely, how can I help? If somebody says something along the lines of, anybody ever dealt with X, and it's your product or service, or they ask an advice type question, which has to do with your product or service, it's more along the lines of saying, giving them a response to a bigger question. So a lot of times I'm in groups and somebody will pop up with a sales question, and somebody will say, does anybody know how I can do better business development or grow sales? Now I have 2 choices. I can go in there and I can right hook and immediately try and close the deal. But I know that they're not the only one that's going to see how I respond. So I want to cast a wider net. So what I do is go in and deliver value in the answers and tell them how to fix their problem. And people look at me like I'm crazy. I even had one guy so far go, why give away the secret sauce? And which my response is there is no secret sauce. Everything you want is already online anyways. So there's nothing new. There's no secrets. And second, when I help somebody out like that and I drive and give them value, it may not be the first time. It may not be the second time. It may not be the third time. But eventually, I'm going to keep answering the questions, and then the DMs are going to start, the direct messages. And what happens is eventually you start getting the, hey, Donnie, I was reading your response to so-and-so's post, and I've got to say, I really enjoyed how you answered that and put that in there. I'm kind of curious, I have a similar issue, but it's got a twist. Is it okay if I ask it? Now, for me, the DMs are where the magic happens. The DMs are where the good stuff comes. Because the DMs, the direct messages, are people raising a hand based off of an interaction with you. They like your vibe, they like your story, and they are reaching out to you to get your advice. Now, the trick is, you're not trying to sell them when that direct message comes through. You're trying to get a better conversation. And offer advice, help, until the opportunity really presents itself to sell something. Right? And my response is always something along the lines of, can I make you an offer? This is what my company does. Maybe we should do X. And then I make them a product or service offer. And the beauty of this is it's just selling. It's the same way you sell face to face. You're just taking the mechanics and applying them to social. And it's amazing when you apply them to social, the same mechanics, you can really grow a significant business. And it's a lot of fun too. So Tuesday was just a blast. It was a fun time to meet some new friends. Now, here's another interesting thing, and the reason I was grateful for the smaller crowd was after the meeting, I had a gentleman come up and ask me some questions, which typically happens when you speak. And he asked for my email and asked if it was okay if he reached out to me. And of course, I'm always, please reach out to me. So he did. And he happened to be an angel investor. And the reason I bring this up is he has an annual event where he brings in a speaker to talk to his angel network, and offered me to come in and be the guy to do his annual speech for 15 to 20 angel investors, and to sit down in an intimate spot at a dinner conversation and then walk them through my story. Now, what Tuesday taught me was why gratitude is such a beautiful thing. Because the group was small, I got to have a really, really fun conversation and shake hands with everybody who came to see me speak. And you don't always get that. But with this guy I did, and this room I did, and it's led to some client engagements and another speaking engagement. And, you know, it all goes back to you get what you do. I mean, I could have got pissed off that the event wasn't as it was billed. You know, it wasn't as awesome as they were making it out to be. I could have got frustrated, absolutely. But I chose to go to the event. I chose to speak. I'm a guy that now believes that the crowd was small because I didn't do enough to help this guy promote it. That's on me. Not him. It's on me. Had I told more people about it, you know, I could have helped him bring more people to the table. So there's no way I can walk away from something when I threw my hat in the ring and I was one of the causes that there wasn't as big a crowd. It's just the way I look at it. But I'm grateful that it wasn't as big as a crowd, because the results and the people's lives I was able to touch. And then Wednesday came. And Wednesday was just a day of surprises for me. It was, a series of conversations and coaching calls. I mean, my afternoon went a little bit crazy with the number of calls and the people I was talking to, with all the things that's going on with the business and all the things that we're engaging with. And it was a lot of fun. Because I was able to catch up with some people that I hadn't caught up with in a while. I was able to do some Facebook Lives and some private groups. It was a fun and fantastic day, which leads us to Thursday, where I am now recording this episode on a drive to a new client. We're going to go sit down and talk about his company and the processes and how he continues to scale and grow his business and dive in. Now, the whole point of this entire episode is you get what you do. You don't get what you don't do. And, man, I got this awesome week because I have been doing. I've been reaching out, having conversations, putting in long hours, doing a lot of things. And because I've been putting so much out there, I've been able to reap, I've been able to get based on my effort, based on what I've done. And it's awesome. It's fantastic to have these type of weeks, and I will continue to stack them up because I'm doing. And what I want you to understand, guys, is you can't go and just wish for good things to happen. You can't fantasize about having this beautiful, awesome life without doing something. It's about getting in there, rolling up your sleeves, and doing those things that you know you need to be doing, especially when you don't feel like doing them. Especially when you think it's going to be hard. That's when you do. That's when you go. That's when you figure it out. Because you may not see the benefit of that work now. You may not see it tomorrow, the next week, but you're going to see it. You can't do without getting. Now, you may not always get what you're hoping for. It's not how it works. But you're going to get something, and it's usually better than what you already got. So what I want you to remember, guys, keep running, keep going for it, keep doing all the stuff, and it's going to avalanche. And what I mean by avalanche is it's going to get to that point where it's so big that it just starts flowing. And then it's hold on for the ride and go bigger. So keep pushing, keep grinding, keep doing, and watch how fun it is. I really hope this helps you out, guys. Have an awesome, awesome weekend, and keep going big and loud, and enjoy the ride. Come hang out with us in the groups. If you haven't jumped into Donnie Success Champions on Facebook, come hang out with us. Every Friday, I'm in there doing a Facebook Live, recapping the week, and doing a motivational speech, pep talk, whatever you want to call it. Come say hi. We're doing a lot of cool things. Hey, I love you guys. Really appreciate you supporting and listening to the shows. Keep being awesome.
You know what, guys? Really, thank you for listening to this episode. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun putting these together. I wanted to make sure before we get out of here that you knew what we were doing with social content. What we found was because of the podcast, we have a unique way of helping you get your social content out on a very easy way. What we're doing is we're interviewing people. And from that interview, we will capture a lot of information that will then be turned into videos, memes, articles, all things you can use for your social content. I know, like for me, one of the biggest struggles I had was, what do I put out there? What do I say on a regular basis? Well, we'll help do all that for you. So if this is at all of interest to you, reach out to us and let us help you grow your social media channel. I can tell you I did this for my business, and my social media is completely taking off. My Instagram, since I started doing this, jumped to over 10,000 followers, and it continues to grow. So if this is at all of interest to you, check the bottom of the show notes for the link that says, "Get my social content done right now."